Welcome to Keto Life Support, where we make your keto life sustainable, fun, and low stress. I'm Kim Howerton, and I'll be coming to you weekly with some of my keto besties to bring you the practical, real-world keto advice that you need. Quick disclaimer, I am not a doctor, and even if we do have a doctor in the house from time to time, he or she is not your doctor, and nothing we say on this show should be taken as medical advice. Always check in with a trusted medical professional about your own personal medical concerns.
Hello and welcome to Keto Life Support, episode number 108. And this is Kim Howerton. I am your host. I am recording this episode from a beautiful garden overlooking room in Santa Barbara where I'm staying for Metabolic Health Summit. So by the time you're listening to this, that will have already happened. I'll do a summary episode on some of the great things that I learned about that. But right now I'm in a beautiful hotel room. I can definitely recommend this hotel if you're coming to Santa Barbara. It's the Hilton. It's very nice. Anyway, what do I want to talk about today? I've been thinking about this. So this morning I got up. I didn't sleep well. I never sleep well the first night at a hotel or anywhere when I travel. I love traveling, but that first night, it's always a doozy. Anyway, so I digress. Doesn't really matter. I didn't sleep great, but I got up in the morning and I went down to the gym and I had sort of an okay workout. I was like, I'm a little tired, but it was fine. And I did it and I got, some nice work in. And then I was very excited that after my gym experience, I could go for a walk along the coast because literally across the street from the hotel is the ocean. And I know I live in California, I live in the Bay Area, but it's cold at the ocean in the Bay Area. So I was looking forward to kind of a nice sunny walk, but it's foggy this morning, but it was warm foggy, which is kind of strange to me because where I live, it's cold foggy. And went for this lovely walk along the beach. It was foggy, but high fog. So it wasn't like I couldn't see anything. I could see the ocean and it was very pretty. Everything was a little gray. And then I walked one way, and then I turned around and walked the other way. And when I was driving into the hotel, saw this cute little market. It was like a vegetable market and like a produce market, I should say, not just vegetables. And I was like, I'll walk there in the morning and see if they have some yogurt and berries and things like that. So I assumed they would. And I did that this morning, grabbed some things after my walk, they had really nice strawberries, got some strawberries, some yogurt, some cottage cheese, went back to my room, had my breakfast, grabbed some overpriced coffee from the hotel. And that was my morning thus far. Why am I telling you this? I don't know, because, you're my peeps. And today is actually going to be a fairly personal episode because I thought I would talk about my experience with what I actually call exercise trauma. And why did I tell you about my morning? Well, I was thinking about it as I was walking. And also, I've noticed that I've become irritating recently talking about exercise. And I keep saying, I don't even know who I am. And I'm like, just stop it, Kim. It's irritating. But it feels weird. And I thought, well, I'm a lot of what I do with you guys, my audience, my peeps, is talk about my experience, because it seems like it resonates for a lot of you and gives you maybe a place to look to into the future. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. My experience a little bit more with exercise. In my previous episode, I talked with Nurse Cindy. We touched on some of these issues. Forgive me if I repeat myself about anything, but this is going to be one of those episodes where I'm talking about my thoughts, my feelings, my history, and where I'm going from here. So I was a fat kid, right? I started struggling with my weight in third grade, I think. Definitely by fourth grade, it was pretty advanced. And I was not an athletic kid. I was sort of an awkward kid. I grew really fast. I had really long limbs. I literally tripped over my feet a fair amount. They were a little too long. And I didn't really ever like exercise. I don't have a memory of playing in a highly physically active way and enjoying it as a child. I might have when I was, 2 or 3 or 4, but by the time I was sort of aware of what was going on, I did not enjoy it. And I would much rather, once I learned to read, I would rather sit and read than move my body. I remember my dad, we would tease my dad because he was like, okay, let's get up and go and do the thing. And, he's very activity-based events. And my mother and I would be like, we're reading. We'd go on vacation. We'd bring books. And so I just wasn't into it as a kid. And then I got into school. And, there's PE class and there's recess, and then the worst of the worst, right? Were those I don't know if you had these at your school, but at the beginning of the school year, there'd be these field trips that were very athletic. There were a few ropes courses we did where, you'd be rappelling and there'd be ropes and swinging and jumping and, I have trauma. I do. I have this sort of traumatic association with feats of strength and athletic things. I don't have a core memory of goodness around these issues. I just remember any time I anticipated that there was going to be exercise, my anxiety would just shoot through the roof. I would start to anticipate that it was going to be hard, that I was going to struggle, that I wasn't going to be good at it. Just this swelling anxiety before any event. In fact, it actually was a real detriment to my relationship as an adult with my boyfriend when we first met, or not even first met, but for many years after we met. He loves to go hiking. And for many years, I would just kind of pretend that I was okay with it. And it was clear that I wasn't okay with it because I was so tense. So we'd go get in the car to go for a hike. And just the whole morning, from the time I woke up, I was anxious. And I was like, oh, it's going to get hard. And I'm going to be breathing heavy. Just these repetitive thoughts about how bad I was going to be at what we were going to do. And it would invariably lead to us getting into a fight because I was acting very strangely. And I would literally even just sometimes just start crying randomly while hiking. And I would drag my feet and walk slow. And no matter how slow he tried to walk to keep up with me, I would walk even slower. And it wasn't me trying to be difficult or pouty or, rebellious. It was literally that I was 2 seconds away from a panic attack the whole time. And I guess part of me always felt like if I could just go a little slower, then I can do this better. And I won't look like such a fool and I won't look so out of breath. I'll just go a little slower and maybe nobody will notice that I'm panting, right? So I had just all of these, it was like a tsunami of negativity anytime I would work out or do anything physically strenuous. And this was decades. So by the time I started to really address this, I'm still addressing this. I am currently 45. These things started really at childhood at some point before I was fairly even conscious of it. So it's been a good 40 plus years that I've struggled with these things. And so that's why I keep saying with so much shock, I'm totally confused about my identity now. I don't know who I am. That my first day upon arriving here in Santa Barbara, I got up and I went to the gym and then I went for a walk. I've been keto for 6 years. 6 years this month. And, it took me to now to really make the shift in terms of my fitness to expand my horizons beyond just changing the food to changing my whole view of my body in terms of what fitness looks like, right? I like the word fitness because it fit as in able to do. I am fit to do this. I am capable. right? So that word fitness, it has a connotation for me that's very positive, actually, when I think about it. I just didn't identify with it before. And I always liked people. It's a strange thing. I was always very attracted to people, like not just from a, physical standpoint, but like from an emotional standpoint, very much liked people that were very fit, had that kind of goal orientation. My long-term boyfriend is very fit and he loves exercise and just doing things with his body physically that are challenging. That just is part of who he is, and it's part of what I love about him, and I love this about many people. And it was always a little weird because I am not one of these people. Why do I like them? But it's very attractive to have that feeling of capability in this. And maybe I was wanting some of that to rub off on me. And for a long time, though, what it felt like instead was like a lot of friction, right? Instead of like me bumping up against it and I was like, let me get a little of that, let me rub it on me. It was like, let me bump up against that and I'd be like, I'm allergic, right? It was this kind of like terrible feeling, a lot of resistance. And yet I kept going and I kept sort of checking in with myself. Like, it's probably time you start moving your body more. It's probably time you start moving your body more, And I thought, what can I do? And I talked about this with Nurse Cindy, that I started with just walking, because walking was by myself. I didn't want anyone to go with me because I didn't want anyone else's pace. I'm a slow walker for somebody with very long legs. I have very long legs. I like to walk slow, but it doesn't feel challenging. One of the things I'm still wrestling with is that when I get out of breath, when I get super challenged cardiovascularly, I get a panic response. Like my brain interprets that as panic. And I'm still working on this. This is a work in progress for me. And I'm just sharing where I am, hoping that it might give some people comfort who find themselves similar to me. But I was like, okay, what can I do? I know that like lifting weights is really important to me. The data is so overwhelming about longevity. Some of it is based in having as much muscle mass as possible, health span, being as healthy as possible for as long as possible, having a good deal of muscle mass, not being under muscled, not being under strength, being able to do hard things, exercising, and yes, your cardiovascular system as well. It's not just the weightlifting, but the weightlifting is a long-term proposition, right? You don't add 5 pounds of muscle your first week. It's gonna be slow. And the older you are, sometimes the slower it will be. And so something I said, I gotta start doing this because I think I've shared before that, I've seen the decline of some of my family members in their 70s and 80s. And they have shared with me how much of their life feels like it's being stolen from them as their physical capabilities are declining faster than their mental capabilities. So they're very aware of how much less they can do compared to what they used to be able to do, and how much more pain they're in than they want to be. And, I've come to the realization that I don't have forever and I better start. And I know part of my brain is like, at 45, that's when you came to that realization. You couldn't have done that at 35 or 25, but I didn't. And there's no sense regretting it. You just have to move on from where you are. So if you're 45, you're 55, you're 65, or 75, you can always make progress from where you are. And so I just want to put out there that it's worth trying. Now that I'm in the habit of doing it, it's like, oh, this isn't actually that hard. I mean, it's hard in the moment, but once you incorporate the habit, it's not that hard. And it took about 2 months for me to feel like, okay, it's now a habit that I've incorporated. And I feel like I did a good thing. I have to call out the good things I do. I do a lot of things that I'm like, that was not a good thing, but this seemed to be a good thing. I said, I can do 3 times a week. I can set aside 3 times a week to lift weights. I know I can do that. And part of my brain was like, 5 would be better. And part of my brain was like, maybe 4. And I was like, no, 3. Like, I can actually commit to 3. I can be consistent with 3. I can know that I can draw a line at that. I can always get 3 in. And if something happens where I'm sick or something's off and I still get 2 in, I'm going to be okay with that, but I'm not going to make that the norm. I'm going to make 3 the norm. I'm not going to overcommit because I know it doesn't. Does this make sense to you? But I knew that if I said I was going to do 4, I might maybe get 2 because I overcommitted, and then I would always underdeliver on an overcommitment with that. But I felt like, okay, I can both commit to and see through 3. And so I've just stayed with 3. And, my research has shown me that 3 is a pretty effective, especially when you're new, 3 times a week lifting weights is an effective dose for the body. And I can feel my body changing. I can see my body changing. And I'm proud that I made that commitment and stuck to it. But what I want to put out there in this episode is not about bragging that I made a change. I do want to brag that I made a change so that you can see that it's possible for you as well. Because if I can do it, you can do it. Promise. But what I really wanted to highlight is if you are somebody that feels that huge anxiety and trauma response around exercise, you're not alone. And that might take different forms, that resistance to it. It might look like anxiety, like it looked for me, right? Like literal panic inside my body. It could look like distraction, like you always just let yourself get distracted. And I don't know how it happened that I didn't do it, but I didn't do it again. Or you're like, oh no, I made lots of excuses and I'm not going to do it, right? You might find many methods to deter you from something that feels important to you. And I'm not saying you have to rush the process. Like I said, it took me years. I got the food thing under control within reason pretty quickly, but then getting myself in a place where I was ready to address the next thing, right? I mean, think about it. It took me 32 years of disordered food behaviors before I was like, okay, let's fix this. And from that point, adding the next layer, 5 or 6 years later is actually, I'm moving the speed up a little bit. But, the older you get, the less time you realize you have. And the more urgent it becomes to actually live a healthy life and one that's very functional. Like, I don't care as much that I live a long, long life, but that the long life I live is functional and healthy, right? I care a lot more about health span than just pure lifespan. The difference is health span is how long you're healthy. Lifespan is just when you die. And I just wanted to put this out there for people that this is hard to make the next layer of change. Somehow the food thing is, oh man, it's so hard. It's so pivotal to who we are and how we live. So I was about to hear the words come out of my mouth. I was like, well, the food is easier. I mean, the food is it is a whole thing. Getting the food in line, stopping the binge behaviors or moderating your eating. It is a huge thing. But for a lot of us, the movement piece is equally big with just as many trapdoors and booby traps and pitfalls. It can be treacherous to navigate. And so I wanted to put out there that 2 things, right? One, I get it. Like it is very challenging for some of us. And I felt like an alien because so many places I looked around me, people would make noises about oh, it's so hard to schedule or like little things. But I did not see very many people talking about literally feeling like they were going to die when they had to exercise, and not in a way that was just like, oh, this is really hard. No, literally like my anxiety would tell me I was going to die, that this was not something that I could do. And, I had events over the years that contributed to reinforcing that thought, The thought had been there for much of my life, but it got more and more intense as an adult when I would do things like decide I was going to get in shape and go to the gym and hire a trainer, and they'd put me through a workout, and I would literally pass out in the middle of the workout. Now, I don't know if that was from how hard they pushed me, which was pretty hard in those workouts often, or a combination of how hard they were pushing me and then my anxiety response, which sort of tipped me over. But, there were events that certainly reinforced that this was a bad thing. And so if you have a similar feeling around exercise, I guess I'm just here to say that there is a way to do it that will feel safe for you. It took me a long time to finally say, wait a minute, I think I'm allowed to be in charge of this. I'm allowed to make my own choices. I'm allowed to do this my own way. I'm allowed to say, I like going for walks by myself so that I can set my pace. I'm allowed to go into the gym and spend 3 hours there because I'm like figuring out what I'm going to do and learning this machine and learning that machine and taking the time to figure it out. I'm also allowed to leave the gym if I feel like I want to. I don't have to stay for, any given period of time. By the way, don't get scared. I said 3 hours. I'm just saying for me, it was like, what is the way that will make me do this thing? Where can I feel like I'm protecting myself, but still doing it? And just like we have to find our own food path, you have to find your own path in terms of exercise as well. You have to find the path that respects you, supports you. I know I'm getting very touchy-feely woo-woo here, but feelings are real and your feelings are valid. And if you have these kinds of feelings, I'm just here to say there's a way to make this work for you. There is a way to make this work for you. And I would probably recommend that everybody just start with getting more steps. So a lot of my clients I find might only be getting, 1,000 or 2,000 steps a day, which is well below sort of basic movement of people. So it's those little things like just walking a little bit more, doing a 10-minute walk after every meal, scheduling some walking time into your day. Just walking is the greatest first step. Now, if you have mobility issues that limit your walking, it can be walking in water. Not walking on water, that's different, but walking in water. So if there's a pool near you, getting into that water. If you have joint issues or you're heavy enough that just the weight of your body is too much, being in water helps some of that pressure on your joints. If you maybe don't walk at all, there are arm workouts you could do. Just moving your body more is going to be the first step. And then from there, you can take your second step. So today's episode was really just what I was thinking about while I was walking, how the identity change of somebody who includes movement in their life is within all of your reach. It's now something that's just incorporated. I'm not saying I could totally throw it away. I could throw this away, but it's now mine to give up instead of something I have to acquire. It's in my pocket. I would have to take it out of my pocket and throw it on the ground to get rid of it, right? I would have to say, no, throw it out. Whereas before it was like, it felt like this elusive thing I was never in possession of. And now I am, it's mine. And I could choose to throw it away, but I am consciously choosing to keep it in my life as part of my identity. And you can have this too. And I would encourage you to move in this direction. So you don't have to move fast. You can take it as you need to, but I would suggest that you start and you keep inching forward. And I'm here if you have questions about what I've done, how I've set things up for me. I'm not suggesting it is optimal, but I am suggesting that it's seeming to work for me. I am not a fitness expert. I am not a weighty, lifty, experty person-y, but I am somebody who knows the importance of it. And I feel like I want this for you. I feel like a very different person that I made this happen. So if you think back about the self-respect and power you gained when you changed your eating, you can then think about doubling that, because now you've changed your eating and your movement habits and the self-regard that can come with that. It's no small thing. So those were my thoughts this lovely day, and I encourage you to share with me any thoughts you have so that we can move forward together and enjoy a longer, healthier life. All right, talk to you soon. Take care.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Keto Life Support. Want more information? Want show notes? Want to suggest a topic? Just head over to ketolifesupport.com. That's where all that kind of thing can go on. By the way, I have a request. If you could go to your podcast host and hit subscribe, we would really, really appreciate it. And what would be even more awesome is if you could write a review. And what would be even more awesome than that is if you could write like a really flattering review. Just asking, you do you. All right. So thanks so much for joining us. I'm thrilled that you're part of the Keto fam. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.